Hey guys, this is Bluffmunkey back again for Sonic Academy, and in today's video I want to take a look at the musical concept of call and response. We're going to look at a couple of examples just to show you what I feel is applicable and how I use it in one specific kind of music in particular. So let's get stuck straight in. Okay, so just a little description. Call and response, to put simply, is the idea of two separate phrases in music. Think of it like language. You've got one musical part talking to another musical part. There's no real hard and fast definition or rules that you need to follow, but it's this idea that you've got two musical ideas talking to each other, or two musical parts talking to each other. And you probably hear it quite a lot without even realising it. So the first example I want to give you is this little trance loop thing I've put together. And in this particular case, this is a kind of method or a style of writing that I use all the time without really even thinking about it. So I've got kick, I've got a bass group, percussion, which is just a couple of loops, some acids from Anna 2, trance pack, a downlifter, and then I've got two separate leads, where in fact it's a lead and a pluck, which I've grouped together as call and response. So let's just have a listen to it all together. So I wouldn't imagine there's anything standing out there, but if we solo this call and response group, it would be quite obvious what's happening here. So I've got this kind of long lead sound. And then responding to that is a pluck. So they don't have to be like really separate sounds or separate parts, but in this case I've used a long sound and a plucky sound as a kind of a counteraction to each other. So you've got the long lead sound establishing the melody, and then you've got the plucky sound responding to it. And again, there's no rules to it, you don't have to follow any rules, but let's just solo this little group and have a listen to it. So even by itself, it works. Do you know what I mean? It's one sound playing off the other sound, and they're quite contrasty, but they're still recognisably trance sounds, aren't they? You've got a long super saw lead, and then you've got this short plucky sound, and they do play off each other. So let's listen to it again, then I'm going to unsolo it back into the context of everything else that's going on. And in fact, let's just have a listen to what else is going on. It's really simple stuff. So you've got a kick. And then bringing in percussion, which is just loops. All I've done is use loops in this case. And then I've got this little acid group here, which is two separate sounds. That kind of thing, which I love. And that kind of thing, which I also love. Together. And then to start the phrase off, we've got this downlifter. So without the call and response, it's just a nice trance bass, quite an old-fashioned trance bass, I would say early 2000s, where my brain is stuck and will be stuck forever. So it's like you've got that rigid bass, and then you've got the conversation of the leads and the pluck going on top. So the kick, bass, and the acids, they're like the foundation, and the call and response to these leads. In this case, it's the more organic part, I would argue. And that's pretty much it. you don't have to use these kinds of leads. It can be literally anything. We will have another look in a second at a completely different style of music. But I just wanted to establish this idea that you're really trying to get two sounds, two phrases, two ideas talking to each other. And if you think about it in terms of language, if you don't speak, if you go to a country where you don't speak the language and you hear two people talking, you can kind of get a feeling of what their emotions are doing without knowing what they're saying. And that's kind of what you're trying to do in this particular instance with this call and response lead and pluck. So there's the first example. Again, there's no rules to it. I can't explain anything to you. It's something you kind of feel. I want this and this working together. Do you know what I mean? I want this and this working together, talking to each other. So it's that kind of thing. We're now going to look at this very, very simple orchestral mock-up. I need to shut this down and I'll see you guys there. Right, this time I want to look at something completely different in terms of what I still feel is call and response. So to kind of set the scene, I would argue that in some respects, if you have a drum beat going, like a kick and a snare or a kick and a clap, that is borderline call and response, because the way that these two things interact together can have quite a big impact on how you feel about the music. So to that end, we've seen something very melodic and very musical. And I just want to introduce this idea that you can use call and response in percussion as well. And this is a very simple way of looking at it. But I've got these incredibly straightforward kind of orchestral thing going on because I just wanted to show something very different. So this is without the percussion. Like, super basic, right? It's just this string, low brass, and a vocal warble. But introducing percussion, like orchestral percussion these days, is quite bombastic, isn't it? It's these massive sounds. So I've done something like this. Let's just get rid of it. We don't need this big. So it's really, you've got this kind of low, almost taiko drum, and then this big tom on top. So let's just have a listen to those together. And that's pretty much it. It's this this idea that you can use percussive sounds as well to emphasize low, high, low, high. It doesn't have to be just melodic. And you could have, quite often back in the day, going back as far as like gospel singing, you would have two singers like throwing phrases at each other. It can be almost anything. And this is what I'd want to get you to try and practice, is this idea that you can use call and response for literally any part of your music. You don't usually hear about it in terms of percussion like this, and the reason I've deliberately done this is because I think you can, and far more in-depth and complicated than I've shown here. So let's just have a listen to this again. My orchestral brain is screaming at me, put expression into this, because it's like so static, but that's not what we're here for. So really think about how these two parts are talking to each other. What are they saying to each other? I know it's a little bit abstract and a little bit woolly to say something like that, but really music is so tied to emotion that you can really like introduce these concepts of non-language sounds talking to each other. In the same way that you might hear two birds talking to each other in the trees. I've actually got a recording that I put on Facebook a few years ago where, I'll see if I can dig it out actually. It might be deleted, but there was a crow, an owl, and a hawk all responding to each other for about an hour at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's like, woo, ah, and they just went on and on and on. It's quite funny, actually. So these things happen in nature, so keep them organic. Little short video here. It's just, like I said again, don't look at this as a rule book thing. Have a think about sounds that you like to hear and see what two sounds work together in terms of what you perceive as talking to each other. And talking here is a very vague term, but that's kind of what we're going for. So I hope you found this complete lack of information useful. I've given you some examples, but go out and try it yourself, and I'll see you guys again soon. Cheers.
Thanks everyone for watching. We really appreciate all the support from you guys. If you love this video, then smash a like, and if you want to be notified about new videos, hit the subscribe and notification buttons.